The smoke rose for thin blue ribbons curling above the fence line, carrying the smell of fat and charcoal into the late afternoon heat of Mesa Vista. In the backyard of the Delgado house, someone had strung cheap paper lanterns along the fence. Pop country thumped from a Bluetooth speaker on the patio table, making the plastic cups tremble. Kids ran through the patchy grass with squirt guns. A cooler brimmed with ice and cans of beer sweating in the Arizona sun. Bree Carter Delgado stood by the grill with a stemless wineglass in hand. Her blonde hair was pulled into a high ponytail, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She waited until the nearest guest had turned toward her, then lifted her glass. "To freedom," she said, smiling wide. "To finally living how we want." There were laughs, a few whoops, the clink of glass on glass. Someone shouted, "About time!" The speaker skipped for a beat, then caught the rhythm again. On the other side of the fence, at the mouth of the cul-de-sac, a pair of headlights turned in slow. For a second, red and blue light flashed against the windows of the neighboring houses, muted by distance and sun. No one in the yard looked that way. The music swallowed the sound of tires on hot asphalt. Hours earlier, the house had been quiet. That morning, before the street filled with parked cars and the grill smoke settled into everything, Rosa Delgado stood alone at the kitchen counter. The desert light came in low and sharp through the small window over the sink, slicing across the laminate and the faded tile floor. The radio on the counter played a Spanish bolero low. The coffee maker hissed and sputtered. Rosa watched the dark stream pour into a chipped mug that said "World's Best Mom" on one side and had a spiderweb crack climbing up the other. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself. The house felt cooler than usual. Or maybe it was just her. Footsteps thudded down the hall. Ethan appeared in the doorway with a folder under his arm. His hair was damp like he'd just taken a shower. T-shirt mesh shorts, the same beat-up sneakers he'd worn for years. A man who looked like he had always just sat down even when he was standing. "Morning, Mom," he said without quite looking at her. "Morning," Rosa replied. She reached for her mug, her fingers slow on the handle. Ethan dropped the folder on the table and flipped it open. Paper slid out, edges catching the light. He pulled one free and tapped it with his finger. "I need you to sign this." Rosa took a sip of coffee before she answered. It was too hot bitter, but she swallowed anyway. "What is it?" "Just something the lawyer put together, Hukimpaz," he said. "Putting the house in both our names, you and me, co-owners." He smiled the way he used to when he wanted something as a boy. "It protects you." Rosa frowned. "Protects me from what?" Ethan exhaled sharply like the air in the room annoyed him. He slid the paper closer. "Come on, Mom. You are 64. If something happens, do you really want the state deciding what happens to the house? This way, I can take care of everything. For you, for Lily." Rosa set the mug down, coffee sloshed near the rim. "I already decided," she said. "Your father and I did. The house is in my name. When I'm gone, it will be yours. You do not need this paper." Behind Ethan, another shape appeared. Bree leaned against the doorframe, one hip kicked out, a green smoothie in her hand. She wore leggings and a cropped top, her nails a fresh glossy white. "It is not a big deal, Rosa," Bree said, voice light. "Everybody does this. It is just smart." Rosa looked from Ethan to Bree, then back to the paper. The lines of text blurred for a second. She could pick out words grantor, grantee, transfer of interest. "Did you read it?" she asked Ethan. His jaw tightened. "The lawyer explained it. It is fine. Just sign." He put a pen on top of the page and nudged it toward her. The radio crackled and faded, then came back. Outside, a truck rumbled past Bass, shaking the thin windows. Rosa could hear the neighbor's sprinkler ticking somewhere beyond the kitchen wall. She did not pick up the pen. "Ethan," she said quietly, "this house is all I have. I am not signing anything I do not understand." "You do not trust me?" Ethan asked. The hurt in his voice sounded practiced, like a note he had hit many times. His eyes flicked to Bree. "Hear that? She thinks I'm trying to screw her." Bree lifted one shoulder. "I think she's scared. Change is scary." Rosa folded her hands on the table to stop them from shaking. "I am not scared," she said. "I am careful." Ethan's chair scraped back. He stood up, the paper crumpling under his hand. "We live here," he said. "We pay for things. I work my ass off every day. Bree takes care of Lily. This is our home too, and you are acting like we are strangers." "It is my home," Rosa replied. The words surprised her with how firm they sounded. "I built it with your father. I paid for it. I am letting you stay. That is enough." Bree's smile thinned. The smoothie straw creaked between her fingers. "You are letting us stay," she repeated. "Right." Ethan's jaw clenched. A vein pulsed at his temple. "Sit down and sign, Mom." "No." It was a small word. It filled the kitchen. Ethan stepped closer. The folder fell open wider on the table. Rosa could see more lines now, the dense print, the place where someone had typed her name. She pushed her chair back. The legs screeched on tile. "I'm going to my room," she said. "We will talk later." Ethan moved to block her. His arm brushed her shoulder. "Nobody's going anywhere until you sign." He reached for her wrist. Rosa pulled back her hip, bumping the counter. The mug tipped. Coffee splashed dark and hot across the white tile and over her hand. "Stop," she said. "Let me go, Ethan." Lily's voice floated from the hallway, small and sleepy. "Addie." Rosa turned her head toward the sound. For a fraction of a second, she saw her granddaughter's face at the end of the hall, hair tangled, teddy bear clutched to her chest. That was when Ethan shoved her. It was not an accident. It was quick, a sharp movement, his palm flat against her upper arm. Rosa's heel slid on the coffee. The world snapped sideways. The edge of the granite counter rose up fast. Her head hit with a clean, hard crack. Light flared white behind her eyes. For a moment, there was no sound at all, just a high, distant ringing. Then the kitchen crashed back in the radio, the refrigerator humming, Lily screaming her name. "Grandma." Rosa's knees hit the floor. Her fingers flew to the back of her head. When she pulled them away, they were streaked red. "Oh my God," Bree said. Her voice was close now. She stepped over spilled coffee over the broken mug. "Rosa, you have to be more careful on tile. It is slippery." Lily stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide, lips trembling. Bree spun toward her. "Lily, back to your room," she said, sweet and sharp at the same time. "Go, now." "But Grandma's bleeding," Lily whispered. "I said now." Rosa heard the soft thud of small feet retreating down the hall, the click of Lily's door. Ethan stood a few feet away, chest rising and falling. He did not kneel. He did not offer a hand. Rosa pressed her palm to the wound. The pain settled in deep and throbbing. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and iron. "I am fine," she said through her teeth. It was not true, but it was what she could lift. Bree fetched a paper towel and held it out arm stiff like she was passing something dirty. "Here, hold that. It is just a bump." Rosa took it and pushed herself upright, using the counter for balance. The room swayed. She waited for it to steady. Ethan looked away first. He grabbed his beer from the counter, cracked it open, the sound loud in the silence. "I have to get ready for later," he muttered. "We have a lot to do." Rosa did not ask what later meant. She walked down the hall past the family photos on the wall, the ones that had slowly drifted lower as new framed school portraits of Lily took the higher places. The light over the hallway flickered once, then steadied, casting a dull yellow over everything. Her room was not the master bedroom anymore. That door was closed, Bree's pink robe hanging on the knob. Rosa passed it without touching it. Her room was the small one at the back, the one that had once held boxes and a broken exercise bike. The window there faced the side yard and the neighbor's fence. The air smelled faintly of detergent and concrete. She shut the door, leaned against it for a breath, then crossed to the closet. The old cloth suitcase sat on the top shelf, floral print faded by years. Miguel had bought it at a thrift store when they first came to Arizona, long before there was a house to unpack it in. Rosa brought it down and laid it on the bed. The zipper rasped when she opened it. She moved slowly, choosing only what she could carry. 2 blouses, 1 pair of slacks, a worn cardigan underwear, the orange plastic bottles of her medication, a rosary. The framed photograph of Miguel in his work shirt, eyes crinkled at the corners. At the very back of the small metal filing cabinet, under stacks of old utility bills and medical records, was the envelope that held the deed. Rosa slid it out, the paper soft from being handled so many times. She did not open it. She knew what it said. She tucked the envelope between the folded clothes. The door creaked. Lily slipped inside, closing it quickly behind her. Her cheeks were wet. The teddy bear was pressed against her chest so tight its fur bulged. "Are you leaving?" she asked. Rosa sat on the edge of the bed. The suitcase yawned open beside her. "I need to go stay somewhere else for a while," she said. "Just for a little while, mi niña." Lily shook her head, hair flying. "You said that when Daddy and Mommy moved into your room," she said. "You said it was just for a while." Rosa's throat tightened. "This is different," she said. "I need to rest. Your Daddy and Mommy and you need space." "I do not want space," Lily cried. "I want you." She threw herself into Rosa's arms. Rosa held her one hand splayed across the child's back, feeling the thin ribs, the quick heart. "If I stay, Ma," Rosa whispered into Lily's hair, "I will just be in the way." "No," Lily said, her voice muffled against Rosa's shoulder. "You are my favorite person." Rosa closed her eyes. For a moment, she let herself breathe in the smell of Lily's shampoo and sleep and crayons. Then she eased the child back and wiped her cheeks with the pads of her thumbs. "You will be all right," she said. "You are brave. You remember that, yes." Lily nodded, but her mouth trembled. A voice floated down the hall, Bree's laughter high and bright. "Yes, Saturday, for sure. She's already packing. Finally, we can do the backyard the way we want. Invite everyone." The words reached Rosa through the thin wall like water through a crack. Her fingers froze on the zipper of the suitcase. "They are having a party," Lily asked, sniffing. "For what?" Rosa did not answer. She stood closing the suitcase with one firm pull. The sound of the zipper cut through the room clean and final. "Stay here," she told Lily. "I need to say goodbye to someone." In the living room, the furniture Rosa had bought over decades sat in their new arrangements. The old armchair that used to live by the front window was shoved against a side wall half blocked by a plastic bin of toys. The coffee table held Bree's scented candles and a stack of glossy magazines. Bree stood by the patio door with her phone to her ear, one hand twirling the cord of the blinds. "Yeah, we will do a big cookout," she said. "Music lights the whole thing. It will be our first real party here." She caught sight of Rosa through the glass, broke into a small satisfied smile, and turned her back, lowering her voice. On the couch, Ethan sat with one ankle over his knee, scrolling his phone. A half-empty bottle of beer sweated on the side table. The TV screen in front of him was dark. He was not watching anything. Rosa shifted the suitcase higher on her shoulder. The weight of it bit into her palm. Ethan did not look up. Bree pretended Rosa was not there. At the front door, Rosa paused. The hallway light flickered once more. She reached out and flipped the switch. The bulb went dark, leaving the hall in a soft gray. No one told her to turn it back on. When she opened the door, the desert afternoon hit her full in the face. Heat rushed at her, dry and bright, wrapping around her like a too-warm blanket. The sky above Mesa Vista was a hard, cloudless blue. The sidewalk shimmered. She stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind her. The latch clicked. For a second, she stood there on the small concrete stoop, suitcase in hand, knees weak. Then she walked. She did not look back at the house as she crossed the patch of gravel that passed for a front yard. The stones crunched under her sandals. Her shadow stretched long in front of her on the sidewalk, thin and stooped. Across the cul-de-sac in a yard lined with potted succulents, Jean Patterson was standing with a hose in her hand, spraying a row of spiky plants. She wore an oversized t-shirt and loose shorts, gray hair pulled into a messy knot. She saw Rosa coming. Her eyes flicked to the suitcase, then to the streak of dried blood near Rosa's hairline. "Rosa," Jean said, dropping the hose. Water kept running, darkening a patch of dirt. "Honey, what happened to you?" Rosa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The words felt too heavy. Her knees buckled a little. Jean moved fast for a woman her age, crossing the lawn in 3 quick strides. "Come on," she said, looping an arm around Rosa's shoulders. The smell of cheap floral detergent and sunscreen clung to her. "Inside, right now." The hose lay forgotten on the grass, water puddling around the roots of a fat little cactus, as Jean guided Rosa up the steps and into the cool dim of her kitchen. The door swung closed behind them with a solid, certain sound. Jean sat Rosa at the small round table and pressed her palm flat on the laminate. "Stay put," she said. "You look like you are about to fall through the floor." The kitchen smelled like bacon grease and lemon cleaner. A fan on the counter spun lazily, ticking every time it completed a turn. Rosa kept her eyes on a crack in the table where someone had carved a small heart. Jean moved around the room with the practiced irritation of someone who had done it all herself for years. She turned off the stove, tossed a half-burned strip of bacon into the trash, then opened a cabinet and pulled out a plastic bin. "First aid kit," she muttered, "somewhere in this mess." She found it under a stack of takeout menus and brought it to the table. Alcohol wipes, cotton pads, a roll of gauze, a tiny pair of scissors. She clicked on a brighter light above them. "Let me see," she said. Rosa did not want to, but she tipped her head anyway. Cold fingers parted her hair. The sting of antiseptic followed sharp and clean. She sucked in a breath through her teeth. "Sorry," Jean said. "It is not deep, just rude." Rosa tried to smile and failed. Jean wrapped a small bandage at the back of her head, then stepped back to look at her handiwork. "There," she said. "You will live." Rosa stared at her hands. Coffee stains dried in uneven patches on her cardigan sleeve. Her fingers still carried the faint smell of iron. Jean poured coffee from a fresh pot into a mug that said "World's Okayest Grandma" in peeling letters and set it in front of Rosa. The steam rose in thin curls. Rosa wrapped her hands around it, grateful for the warmth more than the taste. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the fan ticking and the distant murmur of a lawnmower somewhere down the block. Through the small window over Jean's sink, Rosa could see the edge of her own roofline, the pale stucco she and Miguel had painted themselves. A plant she had trained to climb the fence years ago reached over the top plank, its leaves catching the light. She blinked and the kitchen around her shifted. The fluorescent hum of Jean's light faded. In its place came the steady roar of sewing machines, the smell of machine oil and fabric dust. The table in front of her held not a chipped mug, but a lunchbox wrapped in a faded towel. Miguel sat across from her at a narrow table in the break room of the factory, elbows on his knees. His hair was still black, then his hands not yet stiff with age. He wore the same denim shirt every day, sleeves rolled to his forearms. "You forgot your lunch again," he said, opening the box. Rosa laughed softly in the memory. I was late, she answered, though here now she did not move her lips. The bus broke down. Miguel held out half of a burrito foil peeled back. Rice beans, scrambled egg, the smell of salsa. You have to eat, he said. You are no good at the machines if you faint. They used to joke that the mill would fall apart without them. Miguel cut patterns. Rosa sewed seams. Day after day they watched bolts of fabric become uniforms and dresses and cheap suits that would travel farther than they ever had. On their days off, they rode the bus to the edge of town and walked past empty lots, dirt and scrub and scattered trash. Pick one, Miguel would say with a grin. We will build here. She always thought he was teasing until the day he did not laugh. The lot they bought was small, squeezed between two modest houses. The soil was hard and pale, full of rocks. No trees, no shade. Rosa had stood there with the suitcase that would later end up on the top shelf of her closet, squinting into the sun. It looks like nothing, she had said. Miguel had put a hand on her shoulder. It looks like a beginning, he replied. They poured a concrete slab one weekend with the help of a cousin and a friend from the mill. The walls went up slowly. Miguel learned as he went cross-checking with books borrowed from the library and advice shouted across fences by other men who had built their own places. Rosa mixed cement in a wheelbarrow with a shovel until her arms shook. She hauled bricks, held boards in place while Miguel hammered. At night, she soaked her hands in warm water and rubbed lotion into her cracked knuckles before sitting at the small sewing machine in their rented room to finish orders for neighbors. The first night in the house, there were no doors on the bedrooms yet. No curtains on the windows. The electrical work was half finished, though the kitchen light worked flicking on with a satisfying click that made them both laugh. They laid the patchwork quilt on the bare floor of what would be their bedroom. It was made from pieces of old shirts, dresses, and scraps Rosa had collected from the factory. Each square was a color she remembered buying or sewing for someone else. A blue cotton from a dress she had loved as a girl, a strip of Miguel's old work pants. They lay side by side on that quilt, staring up at the ceiling, a single bare bulb above them. We did it, Miguel said. His voice echoed slightly in the empty room. Rosa had nodded, her cheek pressed to his shoulder. This is ours, she replied. Later, when Ethan was born, she laid him on that same quilt and watched him kick his small legs, his dark eyes solemn as he focused on the pattern above him. He grew up between those unfinished walls as the house slowly filled in around them. Sheetrock went up, paint-covered pencil lines. The yard transformed from raw dirt to something softer. Rosa planted a row of bushes along the fence and near the back corner a small tree that looked more like a stick than anything else. Miguel worked longer shifts. Rosa took sewing in from neighbors and friends and any stranger who would pay. She made quinceañera dresses that glittered under hall lights, prom gowns that rustled like secrets, uniforms that never wrinkled no matter how many times they were washed. Ethan walked to school with a backpack that was always a little too big for him, but filled with what he needed. At night, he sat at the kitchen table doing homework, while Rosa pinned hems in the living room. Miguel would come in, smelling of fabric, and sweat drop a kiss on Rosa's cheek. Ruffle Ethan's hair, then collapse into the armchair by the front window. The armchair had been their first big purchase for the house. Green upholstery worn smooth in places, the cushion molded to Miguel's body. Rosa loved to sit there on quiet mornings with coffee and watch the street wake up. Years later, after Miguel's heart gave out, and the factory sent flowers, that chair became Ethan's place when he visited on Sundays from his own cramped apartment. He would sit with a plate of food balanced on his knee, talking about routes and warehouses and future promotions. He met Bree at the logistics company. On the first Sunday he brought her to the house, Rosa stood in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel, heart beating faster. Bree arrived in a sundress and heels too high for the cracked sidewalk, carrying a store-bought pie in a plastic container. "Hi, Mrs. Delgado," she said, leaning in to air-kiss Rosa's cheek. "Thank you for having me." She complimented the food, the curtains, the little framed saints on the wall. She offered to help with dishes and actually did, rolling up her sleeves and chatting about weekend farmers markets and podcasts. Ethan watched her with an expression Rosa recognized from when he had wanted a new toy as a boy, a mix of pride and desperation. They married the following year in a modest hall with 2 bright lights. Rosa hemmed Bree's dress herself, fingers careful on the satin. In the photos, they all smiled, their faces shiny with sweat and hope. Lily came a year after that, small and pink and loud. Rosa held her in the hospital while Bree slept and Ethan leaned against the wall looking terrified. "She looks like you," Rosa whispered to Ethan, tracing the tiny curve of Lily's nose. The apartment Ethan and Bree rented felt even smaller with a baby. Rosa visited often, bringing casseroles and bags of groceries, slipping bills into kitchen drawers. She bounced Lily on her hip so Bree could shower. She folded laundry on their couch while Ethan checked work emails. So when Ethan showed up one Sunday alone, his shoulders hunched, Rosa was not surprised to see the tension around his mouth. "Mom," he said, sitting down at the table, "We are drowning over there." He explained about rent and daycare and Bree feeling trapped in a place where the crib was practically in the kitchen. "We just need a few months," he said. "Until we catch up, we could stay here, help out with bills, be here for you too." Rosa had looked around her kitchen at the walls she had painted at the window she had washed so many times. The house had been quiet since Ethan moved out. Quiet in a way that echoed. "A few months," she repeated. Ethan nodded quickly. "Just until we can get a down payment together. You would not be alone. Lily would be here, Bree too. It would be good." A small knot of worry had formed under Rosa's ribs. 3 adult bodies, 1 small child under this roof. Old patterns shifting, new ones needed. But the thought of Lily's laughter in the hall again, of someone else at the table in the evenings, pressed against that knot. "All right," she had said. "This is your home. You can stay." They moved in the next week. At first, it felt like the early days again, when the house was new and every room carried a different kind of noise. Boxes stacked in the living room. Bree organizing baby clothes in neat piles on the couch. Ethan lugging in a flat-screen television and a box of mismatched mugs. Rosa cooked big meals and Bree washed dishes, hip-bumping against Rosa's as they worked at the sink. Lily crawled on the patchwork quilt Rosa had laid out in the middle of the floor, patting the bright squares with starfish hands. "This place has so much potential," Bree said one evening, standing in the living room, with her hands on her hips, surveying everything. Her voice carried a different tone than thoughtful and assessing. Rosa, wiping her hands on a dish towel, could not tell if Bree was talking about the house or about something else entirely. For a while it felt almost right. The house hummed again. Morning sounds overlapped in a way Rosa had missed. The slap of cabinet doors, Bree singing along off-key to something on the radio, Lily's babble from the patchwork quilt in the living room. Rosa would stand at the stove scrambling eggs while Ethan poured coffee and Bree fed Lily mashed banana with a tiny plastic spoon. The air smelled of toast and baby powder. Sunlight poured in through the kitchen window, painting a bright rectangle on the floor. On those mornings, Rosa could pretend that this was how it had always been, that the years of quiet after Miguel were just a pause. The first change was small enough that she told herself not to make anything of it. One afternoon, Bree stood in the living room with her arms full of baby gear, the playpen, the plastic swing, a basket of stuffed animals. The armchair by the front window sat where it had always sat, its cushions softened by decades of use. "We need a safe spot for her," Bree said, nodding at Lily, who had just discovered her knees. "The light is best here." She set the playpen down in front of the window, then frowned at the armchair. "If we move this over here, she gets more space." She tilted the chair and began to drag it without waiting for an answer. Rosa heard the legs scrape across the floor. She watched the chair slide away from the window to a spot by the wall, half-shadowed near an outlet where someone had left a tangle of chargers. "In the corner, she is closer to the heater," Rosa said. "It gets hot there." Bree straightened it, and while she ended up wiping her palms on her leggings. "It will be fine," she replied. "You can still sit there, just a different angle." Rosa nodded and did not mention that she had chosen that spot years ago because the light in the mornings made the dust glow in the air. She did not mention that Miguel had fallen asleep in that chair so many times with a book on his chest. A week later, Bree announced that the kitchen was a mess. "I cannot find anything," she said, opening cabinet doors and clucking her tongue. "The bowls are here, but the spices are over there, and why is the sugar next to the canned beans?" "Because I use them together," Rosa answered, but Bree was already pulling things out. She emptied the cabinets onto the counter in piles. Pots clanged. Glasses knocked against each other. Bree hummed while she worked, arranging things according to a logic Rosa did not share. "The mugs go by the coffee," Bree said. "Obviously. And baking stuff over here. The big pans on the bottom because they are heavy. See? Now it makes sense." For Bree, maybe it did. That night, when Rosa went to make tea, she opened 3 doors before she found the kettle, and the sugar had migrated to a container with a label that said "sweet" in curly letters. She turned slowly, trying to rebuild the map of the room in her head. "It is just an adjustment," she told herself. Then came the room. One afternoon, Bree appeared in the doorway to the master bedroom where Rosa was folding towels. The sunlight through the sliding glass door to the backyard warmed the bedspread. Outside, a lizard clung to the stucco wall, perfectly still. Bree leaned on the doorframe, studying the room. Her eyes moved from the bed to the dresser to the closet, then to the doorway that separated this space from the rest of the house. "This room is huge," she said. "It is comfortable," Rosa replied, stacking bath towels in even piles. "We are so cramped in Ethan's old room," Bree continued. "The crib, our bed, Lily's things. We can barely turn around." Rosa kept folding. She could feel the conversation approaching like a storm. "You know what would make sense," Bree went on, "if we swapped. You could take the little room by the garage. You are alone. You do not need this much space." Rosa set a towel down more carefully than necessary. This is my room, she said. I have slept here since we built. Bree crossed her arms. And we have a baby, she said. She wakes up at night. It is exhausting. We need the bathroom right there. You can use the hall one. It is actually safer for you. Less chance of tripping on the step. There is no step, Rosa said. Still, Bree replied, it is just fair. The word hung in the air. Fair. Rosa thought about the nights Miguel had spent patching that bathroom, the way he'd cursed quietly when the tiles did not line up, the pride on his face, when the water finally ran right. She thought about bringing Ethan home from the hospital and laying him in the middle of that bed while she showered within reach. She also thought about Lily crying at 2 a.m, Ethan stumbling down the hall, the way Bree's patience seemed to vanish when she was tired. Ethan came up behind Bree, rubbing his eyes. Everything okay, he said. He asked. Babe, Bree said, turning to him. I was just saying, it makes so much more sense if we have this room, right? Ethan looked from Bree to Rosa. He did not walk into the room. He stayed in the threshold as if there were a line at his feet. It would help, he said quietly, just for now. The knot under Rosa's ribs tightened. She folded the last towel and placed it on the stack. All right, she said, I will move. She told herself it was practical. She told herself it was temporary. The small room by the garage smelled faintly of oil and old cardboard. The window was smaller and looked out on a strip of gravel and the wooden fence. At night, Rosa could hear the water heater kick on and off a soft, mechanical sigh. She moved her dresser in with Ethan's help. He grunted as he set it down, then gave her a quick hug. Thanks, Mom, he said. This will make a big difference. By the time she had unpacked her clothes into the closet, with the sticky door, Bree had already hung new curtains in the master. Light gauze white with pale blue stripes. Rosa's heavier drapes lay rolled up in the hall. The armchair by the front window now sat half hidden behind Lily's toy bin. The kitchen no longer followed her habits. The bedroom where she had dreamed with Miguel belonged to someone else. Still, there were good days. Lily learned to walk, then to run her small feet slapping against the tile. She toddled into Rosa's small room and climbed onto her lap without asking, curling into her like a cat. Abuela, she said, trying on the Spanish, then giggled at the sound. When Lily turned 3, Bree threw a party in the backyard. Balloons, a rented bounce house, trays of food from a catering place Rosa had never heard of. Bree's family came loud and cheerful, filling the yard with voices Rosa did not recognize. Rosa spent the morning helping decorate, tying ribbons around napkins, arranging chairs. When guests began to arrive, she slipped back to her small room to change into a clean blouse. By the time she came out again, the party was in full swing. Through the sliding glass door, she saw Lily in a pink dress with a tulle skirt, face painted like a butterfly, perched in front of a cake covered in frosting roses. A stranger in a clown wig led a group of kids in a song. Rosa stood in the shadow of the hallway, watching. Someone near the cake asked Bree, "Your house is beautiful. How long have you lived here?" Bree laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It is my mother-in-law's place," she said, "but we are here now." The woman replied, but the words were lost under the chorus of "Happy Birthday." Bree held Lily's hand as the child blew out candles. The camera flashes blinked like small stars. Nobody called Rosa over for a photo. Later, when the guests had gone and the yard was littered with plastic cups and paper plates, Ethan complained of being exhausted. Bree said her feet hurt. They went to bed. Rosa stayed up another 2 hours picking up trash in the yard under a porch light that hummed. Her back ached as she bent to collect each cup. The grass was damp and sticky with spilled juice. When the water bill came the next month, it was higher than Rosa had ever seen. The electricity bill followed suit. She sat at the kitchen table with the envelope spread in front of her, a thin stack of cash tucked under her elbow. "How can it be so much?" she asked. Bree shrugged, pouring herself iced tea, ice cubes chiming against glass. "The bounce house had a blower," she said, "and it has been hot. We have the AC on more. It happens. We said we would help," Ethan added from the fridge. "But this month is tight. Work has been weird." "This month," Rosa repeated. She took a breath. "Last month was also tight, and the month before." Ethan closed the fridge with a soft thud. "We will catch up, Mom. You know we will. You always think the worst." Rosa paid the bills. Her savings slowly built after Miguel died thinned. 2 months later, a different envelope arrived. The logo of her bank sat in the corner, neat and familiar. Inside was a statement she did not recognize. It listed a home equity line. Balance $15,000, interest accruing, minimum payment. Her name was at the top in bold. Below it, a scanned signature that looked very much like her own, just slightly off, as if written by a hand that had practiced. Rosa stared at the paper for a long time. The refrigerator clicked on. The hallway light flickered, then steadied. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on the statement. "Thank you for calling Desert Sun Bank," a woman chirped after a few transfers. How can I help you today, Ms. Delgado? I received a letter though, Rosa said, about a loan. I did not ask for any loan. Quick typing sounded at the other end. It looks like a home equity line opened 3 months ago, the woman said. In person at our Mesa Vista branch. We have your signature on file. I did not sign anything, Ace. Rosa replied, her voice felt thin. Sometimes people forget, the woman said kindly but distant. If you think this is fraud, you can file a dispute, but it is in both our systems and your record. Rosa hung up after promising to come by in person. Her hand shook as she set the phone down. That evening, she waited until Ethan came home. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, kissed Lily on the head, then opened the fridge for a beer. Ethan, she said, we need to talk. He paused, bottle in hand. What now? She slid the bank statement across the table. The paper made a soft whisper on the wood. You know what this is? She asked. He glanced at it, then took a drink. Yeah, he said. We used it to fix the roof. Remember the leak in the hallway I told you about it? You did not ask me, Rosa said. You did not get my permission. Ethan rolled his eyes. We live here, he replied. Why does it matter whose pen actually touched the paper? It is for the house. It matters, she said. It is in my name, my credit, my risk. Bree walked in, drying her hands on a dish towel. This again, she asked. Rosa, you signed. I was there. Rosa shook her head. No, I did not. Bree smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. You probably just do not remember, she said. It was a long appointment, a lot of papers. It happens. I remember, Rosa said. I remember every time I signed anything for this house. This was not one of them. Ethan set his beer down harder than necessary. Foam frothed up the neck. You always have to make everything difficult, he said. We are trying to make improvements. For you, too. You should be grateful. The overhead light buzzed, then dimmed for a moment. The hallway bulb behind Rosa flickered. Bree sighed, got up, and flipped the hall switch down. I hate that light, Bree muttered, walking back to the sink. It makes everything look dingy. The hallway fell into shadow. Rosa looked at the dark doorway, then back at her son. They put my name on something I did not agree to, she said. That is not a small thing. Who is going to believe you did not sign? Bree asked, rinsing a plate. Water ran loud in the sink. You get confused. You misplace things. I found your keys in the freezer last week. I was in a hurry, Rosa said. Heat rose in her chest. Exactly, Bree replied. You are overwhelmed. We take care of things so you do not have to. Rosa pushed her chair back, the legs scraping the tile. She picked up the statement, folded it once, twice, then tucked it into the pocket of her cardigan. She did not argue further. The words tasted useless on her tongue. That night she woke in the small room by the garage to the sound of voices. For a moment she was not sure if it was the television or her own dreaming. Then she realized the sound came from the other side of the thin wall that separated her from the master bedroom. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cool under her feet. The digital clock on the crate she used as a nightstand read 12:37. The hallway outside her door was dim, washed in the weak light that spilled from under the master bedroom door. She walked toward it, the keys she always wore on a cord around her wrist clinking softly with each step. The door was not completely shut. A narrow slice of brightness cut across the hall. Rosa stopped just short of it, pressing herself to the wall. Inside she heard Bree's voice. I am tired of tiptoeing around her, Bree said. How long are we supposed to wait? Ethan answered, his words muffled but clear enough. What do you want me to do? Throw her out? The house is still in her name. For now, Bree said. There was a rustle as if she had turned over in bed. Once that changes, we do not have to put up with this. Rosa's fingers curled around the ring of keys until the metal dug into her palm. It will change when she dies, Ethan said, or when she signs it over. She is stubborn, but she is not stupid. We can make it sound like it is for her, Bree replied. Like today. Protecting her paperwork, whatever. She is already halfway there. Ethan was quiet for a moment. And if she does not sign, he asked. Bree's laugh was small and cold. Then we do it like the bank, she said. People believe paperwork. Old signatures all look the same to them. Rosa felt something in her chest shift. The hallway seemed to narrow. Her keys bit deeper into her skin. She did not realize she had been holding her breath until her lungs burned. She backed away from the door, one careful step at a time, keeping to the darkest part of the hall. The taped family photos on the wall brushed her shoulder. In her small room, she closed the door without letting it click. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint pattern in the curtain. The ticking of the water heater filled the silence. It was no longer just carelessness, no longer just thoughtlessness. The lines had been drawn clearly in the dark, and she had heard them with her own ears. The words she had heard through the bedroom wall did not leave her. They followed her into sleep, and out of it rode with her in the back of her own thoughts, as she sat now at Jean's kitchen table 3 days after she had walked out of the house with a suitcase and a bleeding head. Sometimes they came as whispers. Sometimes as clear as if Bree were sitting across from her, saying again cheerful and cold that they could always do it like the bank. Jean's kitchen clock ticked above the doorway, cutting the day into pieces. Morning, then afternoon, then evening. The light changed on the linoleum, but Rosa did not move much. The first day Jean fed her. Eggs, toast, sliced tomatoes, things Rosa barely tasted. Jean put plates in front of her, then came back for them later, scraping half-eaten food into the trash, with a frown that was more worry than anger. "You do not have to talk yet," Jean said once, setting down a bowl of soup. "But you do have to eat. That is the deal." Rosa obeyed because obedience was easier than argument. At night, Jean made up the small guest room with clean sheets that smelled of detergent and a little dust. The bed was narrow but soft. A faded quilt lay folded at the foot, not patchwork like Rosa's, but printed with flowers. Rosa lay on her back and stared at the ceiling fan until the blades blurred into a gray circle. When she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's hand on the papers, Bree's face in the doorway, Lily's eyes wide and wet. Lily's eyes. On the second day, Rosa tried to help with dishes and was shooed away. "Sit," Jean said. "My house, my rules." Rosa sat. She looked at her own hands, at the calluses on her fingers that had come from decades of pulling thread through fabric. Those hands had built a home, fed a child, smoothed a baby's hair. They had never signed anything she did not mean. Now they lay open on the table empty. Outside, Mesa Vista moved as it always had. Cars passed, neighbors watered yards. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked at nothing, then at everything. On the third day, the door slammed open so hard a magnet jumped off the refrigerator. Jean came in from the front yard with her phone in her hand and her mouth set in a hard line. "Rosa," she said, "you need to see this." Rosa looked up slowly. The world felt as if it were underwater. She had not left the house except to stand for a moment on Jean's small porch when the air in the kitchen grew too thick. Jean walked over and put the phone on the table screen toward Rosa. A video filled the display, shaky and bright. Someone from the street had filmed over the fence or from a yard a few houses down. The angle was slightly off, but the house was unmistakable. It was Rosa's backyard. The string of cheap lanterns hung over the fence in a crooked line. A long folding table held bowls of chips, aluminum pans, of food, bottles of beer and soda. Balloons bumped against each other in the light wind. There were people everywhere, more than Rosa could count in a glance. Some sat in plastic chairs, talking loud with their hands. Others stood in small clusters, drink in hand, laughing. Music thumped the beat, distorting through the tiny phone speaker. Near the grill, Ethan held a spatula in one hand and a bottle in the other. His face was red from heat and drink, his mouth wide in a laugh at something someone had said. At the center of the frame, Bree climbed onto one of the patio chairs, wine glass raised. The person filming zoomed in. "Listen, listen," a voice whispered behind the camera. Bree smiled, teeth bright. "To finally being free," she called out. "To finally having our own house." The crowd cheered. A few people shouted greetings to the camera, waving, laughing. Someone behind Bree yelled, "No more babysitting the old lady." Bree threw her head back and laughed. "Now we can really live," she said. "No more walking on eggshells, no more drama, just us, our home." Glasses clinked. A chant started, then dissolved into more laughter. Jean tapped the screen to pause it. The image froze on Bree's face mid-smile. "They posted it," Jean said. Her voice shook with anger. "Online. My niece saw it and sent it to me. They are throwing a party to celebrate you leaving. In your yard. At your grill." Rosa stared at the still frame. For a moment, all she could see was the grill. Miguel had found it at a yard sale years ago. It had been rusted, lid dented. He had taken it apart and scrubbed it, painted it with heat-resistant black, replaced a screw here and there, then set it up in that very corner of the yard. They had cooked carne asada on it for Ethan's high school graduation. They had roasted corn for neighborhood gatherings. Now Ethan stood in front of it as if it had always been his. Rosa's throat felt tight. Her tongue tasted like metal. "They are happy you are gone," Jean said, not even pretending otherwise. Rosa lifted her eyes from the screen and looked at Jean. "What did I do?" she asked softly. "That was so terrible." Jean pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. "You let them in," she said. "That is all." Rosa flinched. Jean blew out a breath as if trying to soften the words. "I am not saying it to blame you," she said. "I am saying it because you keep asking what you did as if there is some magic thing you can undo. There is not." Rosa looked back at the phone. Her hand moved on its own, reaching for it. She pressed play again. She watched Bree raise her glass again. Watched Ethan lean in to clink bottles with a man Rosa had never seen before. Watched strangers' feet grind into the grass. She had watered their chairs scrape over the patio she had swept for years. At the edge of the frame near the sliding glass door, Lily flashed past a blur of hair and bare feet chasing another child. No one seemed to be watching her. Rosa pressed pause. Her chest hurt. Not the sharp pain of the head wound, but something deeper, a pressure that had been growing for years, and now had nowhere left to go. They are not only happy, Jean said. They are sure, they really think it is their house now. Rosa sat back, the chair creaked. She looked around Jean's kitchen, the cluttered counter, the stack of mail, the dish towel hanging crooked from the oven handle. This is your house, she said. Jean blinked. Yes, she said slowly. It is. Do you let people move in and take your bedroom? Rosa asked. Do you let them throw parties and say it is theirs? Jean snorted. They would be out on the curb before they finished their sentence. Rosa's fingers curled around the edge of the table. I did not leave so they could have it, she said. I left so they would not kill me. Jean reached across the table and set her hand over Rosa's. So, Jean said, what are you going to do now? The question hung in the air, heavier than the heat outside, heavier than the years behind them. Rosa thought of the deed in her suitcase tucked between blouses. She thought of the bank statement in her pocket, of the pen strokes that looked like hers, but were not. She thought of Lily's face in the hallway after the shove, eyes huge. I do not know how, Rosa answered, but I am not going to let them take it. Jean squeezed her hand once, then let go. I know someone you should talk to, she said. A lawyer. She helped my sister when her son tried something similar. Different details, same kind of ugly. Rosa hesitated. I cannot afford a lawyer, she said. Let her say whether you can or not, Jean replied. She does some work for less when it is family stuff, and this is family stuff, like it or not. Rosa thought of Ethan's voice through the wall, flat and tired, saying the house would be his when she died. Call her, she said. Jean stood, pulled her phone back toward her, and scrolled through contacts with her thumb. Carla Nguyen, she said. Here she is. She put the phone to her ear and turned away slightly, listening as the line rang. Rosa watched the slope of Jean's shoulders, the tension in them. Carla, hi, Jean said. It is Jean from the Patterson case. Remember, I have a friend who needs help. It is urgent. There was a pause. Jean's expression softened. Yes, she said. I thought you would say that. We are at my place. Can she come to you today? Another pause. Jean nodded. Good, we will be there. She ended the call and turned back. She has an opening in an hour, Jean said. Downtown by the old post office. We can be there if we leave now. Rosa looked down at herself. The cardigan with the coffee stain. The sandals she had slipped on in a hurry 3 days ago. The small bandage at the back of her head. I look, she began, then stopped. It does not matter how I look. Jean grabbed her keys from the hook by the door. It matters that you show up, she said. Come on. The day outside was bright and hot. The driveway burned through the soles of Rosa's sandals as they walked to Jean's aging sedan. The car's interior smelled like vinyl and old air freshener. The seatbelt clicked stiffly across Rosa's chest. They drove through streets Rosa knew well, past the laundromat where she used to do all the family clothes before they could afford their own machine, past the corner store where Miguel had bought her ice cream bars when they had no money for anything else. Downtown, the buildings grew taller, their shadows cooler. Jean parked in front of a narrow brick building with a crooked sign that read Law Office in black letters. Inside, the hallway smelled of paper and coffee. A young woman at a small desk looked up as they entered. Hi, she said. You must be Ms. Delgado. Ms. Nguyen is expecting you. She led them down the hall to an office with a window that looked out over the street. Files were stacked on a cabinet, neat but plentiful. A plant with long green leaves drooped slightly in one corner. Behind the desk sat a woman in a navy blazer and glasses. Her hair was streaked with silver at the temples. She stood when they came in and extended her hand. Mrs. Delgado, she said, I am Carla Nguyen. Please have a seat. Rosa took the chair opposite the desk. Jean sat beside her, slightly turned like a guard and a witness at once. Tell me what happened, Carla said. Her voice was calm, not soft, not hard, just steady. Rosa began at the point she could manage. The shove in the kitchen, the blood, the way Ethan had looked at her without moving, Bree telling Lily it was nothing. From there, the words found their own path. She told Carla about the loan she had not taken, the statement with her name, the phone call to the bank, the way Bree had smiled and said she must have forgotten. She told her about the conversation through the wall, about the party in the backyard, the video on Jean's phone. As she spoke, Carla did not interrupt much. She asked small, precise questions. When exactly did you receive the statement? Do you have the deed with you? Have they ever contributed to the mortgage or just utilities? Rosa pulled papers from her bag. The deed folded but safe. The bank statement. Old bills that showed her name at the top month after month. Carla spread them out on the desk in front of her eyes, moving quickly. This is your house, Carla said at last. Legally, on every document that matters. They live there only because you allowed it. They have no right to put hands on you, no right to take loans in your name, no right to party in your yard after driving you out. Rosa's hands twisted in her lap. What can I do? She asked. Carla leaned back slightly. There are several things we can do, she said. First, we file for an emergency protective order to keep them from contacting you. Second, we request an emergency eviction through the court on the grounds of elder abuse and fraud. With the evidence you have, a judge can order them removed from the property while we sort the rest out. Removed, Rosa repeated. The word felt heavy. Yes, Carla said. With the help of the police if needed. The law is not just for strangers. It applies inside families, too. And Lily, Rosa asked, voice breaking for the first time. My granddaughter, she's there. She saw him push me. She's in that house. We will notify Child Protective Services, Carla said. A social worker can be present when the order is carried out. Their job is to watch out for her to see how she's being treated. That is part of this, too. Rosa swallowed. Her chest ached. Do you want to do this? Carla asked. I can advise. I can file. But this begins with you saying yes. Rosa thought of Bree raising a glass in her yard. She thought of Ethan saying the house was not hers anymore. She thought of Lily's arms around her waist and the way the child had whispered that she did not want her to go. Yes, Rosa said. I want them out of my house. Carla nodded once. Then we start now, she said. She began to type fast and firm, the keys clicking in a rhythm that matched Rosa's heartbeat as it began to lift from the heavy drag of the past 3 days. Carla typed for a long time. The keyboard clacked under her fingers, the sound quick and unbroken. Every so often she stopped to ask for a date or a spelling, then went back to it. Rosa watched the cursor move across lines of text she could not quite read from her chair, only the black shapes forming on white. Jean sat beside her, knee bouncing. Outside the office window, the sky over downtown Mesa Vista had taken on the flat brightness of late afternoon. A bus sighed at the corner. Someone laughed on the sidewalk below, the sound thin through the glass. At last, Carla hit one final key and the printer in the corner whirred to life. We are asking for an emergency protection order and an emergency eviction, Carla said as she stood. Based on elder abuse and fraud, the judge I am filing with is strict about these things, which is good for you, but means I need everything right. She collected the pages that slid out of the printer, flipped through them, then picked up the phone on her desk. Stay here, she told Rosa. I will be back in a few minutes. She left the office, closing the door gently behind her. Rosa stared at the space Carla had occupied. The chair still held the slight indent of her weight. The desk lamp cast a pale circle on the paperwork spread out. Jean let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for the past hour. This woman knows what she's doing, Jean said. Rosa nodded, but her stomach felt hollow. She reached into her bag and touched the envelope with the deed again, as if to make sure it was still there. Time stretched. The clock on the wall ticked past another 15 minutes. The hallway outside hummed with faint sounds, phones ringing. Distant voices, the rustle of pages. When Carla came back, she carried a manila folder in one hand and a different sort of energy in her shoulders, a focus that seemed sharper than before. The judge signed both orders, she said, sitting down. He did not hesitate. She opened the folder and showed Rosa the first page. At the top was the court seal, dark and official. Rosa's name was there under protected party, below Ethan's and Bree's names under restrained. This says they cannot contact you directly, Carla explained. No calls, no visits, no messages through friends. If they do, you call me and the police. She flipped to the next set of pages. And this, she said, tapping the heading, is the emergency eviction. The judge agreed that they are in your home without legal right and that their continued presence is a danger to you. We have permission to have them removed today. Today, Rosa repeated. The room seemed to tilt. I have already spoken to the police department, Carla said. 2 officers will meet us at your house. A social worker from Child Services will come as well. We should all get there at the same time. Jean leaned forward. When, she'd say, yes, when, she asked. In about an hour, Carla replied. That gives us time to drive back, meet them at the end of your street, and go in together. Rosa's hands tightened on the strap of her bag. Will it be during the party? She asked. Carla met her eyes. If they are still celebrating, she said. Yeah. They left the office together. The hallway felt narrower on the way out, the stairs steeper. The late afternoon light outside was harsher now, streets shimmering with heat. Jean's car smelled faintly of dust, and the fast food wrappers stuffed in the door pocket. Rosa sat in the passenger seat, the folder with the orders pressed flat between her hands. Traffic was light. School was out for the day, and most people were still at work. They drove past the shopping center, past the mill that had been half converted into office space, past the church where Miguel's funeral had been held. Drink, Jean said at one point, handing Rosa a bottle of water she had grabbed from the floor. Rosa took a sip because Jean told her to the water lukewarm but wet. When they turned into the cul-de-sac, Jean did not pull into her usual driveway. She parked 2 houses down under the thin shade of a scrawny tree. "Look," she said. Rosa did not need the reminder. She could hear it. Music poured over the fence from her backyard, louder now than in the video. A different song, but the same pounding beat. Laughter punctured the air, rising and falling. Cars lined the curb all the way to the mouth of the street, some parked crooked, their hoods glittering. "Bree does everything big," Jean said under her breath. Rosa's house stood where it always had stucco pale against the sky. The curtains in the front window were open. From here she could see the top of Ethan's head pass by, once, then disappear again. Balloons bobbed over the fence behind the house, blue and gold tied to something out of sight. The heat pressed against the car windows. Rosa wiped her palms on her skirt. The keys on her wrists knocked softly against each other, a small nervous music. At exactly the time Carla had said, a police cruiser rolled into the cul-de-sac. Its blue and red lights were not flashing, but the presence of the car changed the shape of the afternoon. Conversations on the sidewalk next to other houses cut short. Blinds twitched. A second cruiser followed, then a white SUV with the county seal on the door. Carla stepped out of a silver sedan behind them, folder under her arm. Her blazer looked too warm for the weather, but she did not seem to notice. Jean opened her door. "Ready?" she asked. "No," Rosa said. She also opened her doors, "but I am going anyway." They walked up the street together. The asphalt radiated heat through Rosa's sandals. The closer they came to her house, the louder the music became, the more clearly she could hear the rise and fall of voices. Carla met them at the front of the first cruiser. "Mrs. Delgado," she said. "This is Officer Reyes and Officer Hunt, and this is Ms. Erin Reed from Child Services." Officer Reyes was a broad man in his 40s with lines at the corners of his eyes. Officer Hunt was younger, her brown hair pulled back in a tight knot, her gaze steady. Ms. Reed wore a plain blouse and slacks, a badge clipped to her belt. Her hair was in a loose bun, a notebook in her hand. "Ma'am," Officer Reyes said, nodding. "You are Rosa Delgado." "Yes," Rosa said. "Do you confirm this is your property?" He asked. "The one behind us." Rosa looked at the house. The front door she had painted herself. The tiny crack in the stucco near the mailbox. The number over the door that Miguel had straightened more than once. "Yes," she said, "it is mine." "Good," Carla said. She handed copies of the court orders to the officers. "They have already seen the electronic version, but here's the paper." Officer Reyes skimmed the top pages, then folded them into a neat stack. "All right," he said. "We go together. Mrs. Delgado, you stay a bit behind us. Let us handle any direct confrontation." Ms. Reed tucked her notebook away. "If the child is present," she said to Rosa, "I will engage with her. You can speak to her, but if things get heated, I may ask you to step back. Not because you did anything wrong, just to keep her from getting pulled between." Rosa nodded, though the idea of stepping back when Lily was near made her chest ache. They approached the front door as a group. From this close, Rosa could smell grilled meat and spilled beer. Someone inside began a loud story and then broke off at the sound of the first knock. Officer Hunt knocked again, harder. "Mesa Vista Police," she called. "Open the door." The music dropped in volume, feet shuffled inside. A voice said, "Turn that down, turn that down." Someone laughed nervously. The door opened a crack, then wider. Ethan stood there in a t-shirt stained with grease sweat shining on his forehead. In his hand he still held a spatula, as if he had forgotten to put it down. His smile died when he saw the uniforms. "What is this?" he asked. "Did someone call about the noise? I told the neighbor if it was too loud, he could just knock." "This is not a noise complaint," Officer Reyes said. "Mr. Delgado, I am Officer Reyes with Mesa Vista PD. We have a court order regarding this property." He held up the papers. Ethan glanced down at them, then looked past the officers. His eyes found Rosa standing on the walkway between Jean and Carla. His face changed. "Mom," he said, "what are you doing here?" Rosa swallowed. Her throat felt dry as the wind. "I came home," she said. Bree appeared over Ethan's shoulder, her hair a little frizzed from the heat makeup intact. She held a glass with a slice of lime on the rim. Her eyes flicked across the officers, then to Carla, then to Rosa. "This is ridiculous," she said, her laugh tight. "You cannot just show up like this. We are having people over." "You are having people over in a house that is not yours," Carla said. Her voice carried without being loud. "This property belongs to Mrs. Delgado. By court order, you are required to vacate it immediately." Bree's hand tightened on her glass. "We live here," she said. "She let us move in. We have mail here. Our stuff is here. This is our residence." "Residency does not equal ownership," Carla replied. "The judge has seen evidence of financial abuse and physical assault. He has ordered your removal while the case proceeds." Officer Reyes stepped closer. Mr. Delgado, he said, we need you to step outside and let us in. You will have 30 minutes to gather essential belongings. You can arrange to pick up anything else later with police present. If you refuse to comply, we are authorized to remove you. Ethan's jaw worked. His grip on the spatula shifted like he had forgotten he was holding it. This is insane, he said. Mom, you did not have to do this. You did not have to drag the police into it. Rosa felt Carla's presence beside her solid as a wall. You dragged them in when you put your hands on her, Carla said quietly. From inside the house, someone called, Ethan, what is going on? Another voice lower, Dude, are we in trouble? Bree turned her head and shouted over her shoulder. It is fine, she said. Everybody just hang out. Little misunderstanding. Ms. Reed stepped forward then. Is Lily inside? She asked. Bree's smile faltered. Who are you? She demanded. Erin Reed, Child Protective Services, she said, showing her badge. I am here because a minor lives in a home where there has been an allegation of violence. I would like to check on her. She is fine, Bree snapped. She's playing. I still need to see her, Ms. Reed said. At that moment, Lily appeared at the end of the hall behind Ethan, drawn by the commotion. She wore a t-shirt with a cartoon cat and shorts, her hair pulled into a crooked ponytail. Her eyes moved from the officers to Carla to Rosa. Grandma? She said, small and stunned. Rosa stepped forward before anyone could stop her. I am here, mi niña, she said. Lily slipped past Ethan's hip and launched herself at Rose's arms flung wide. Rosa caught her suitcase, long since gone, hands now full of her granddaughter's warm weight. Lily's arms wound tight around her neck. Are we in trouble? Lily whispered into her shoulder. No, Rosa said. You are not in trouble. Ms. Reed approached, crouching a little to be at Lily's level while she was still in Rosa's arms. Lily, she said softly, I am Erin. I am here to make sure you are okay. There is a lot happening, but you are safe, all right. Lily nodded, though her eyes were wet. Bree thrust her glass toward the table behind the door, sloshing liquid. Lily, come here, she said. Here, she said, go to your room, pack some things. Why, should she? Lily asked. Because we have to go for a little while, Bree said. Grandma needs to be alone. Rosa felt Lily tense in her arms. I do not want to go, Lily said. I want to stay with you. Ms. Reed placed a hand on the back of Lily's arm. For now, she said gently, you go with your parents. I will talk to all of you later. Okay, this is a lot. We will figure it out. Reluctantly, Rosa loosened her hold. Lily slid to the ground, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand. Take your favorite things, Rosa told her. The ones you cannot sleep without. Lily nodded and walked back down the hall, shoulders hunched. The next 30 minutes moved both quickly and slowly. The officers entered the house. Officer Hunt stayed near the front, watching who came and went, while Officer Reyes walked through each room with Ethan and Bree, noting which items they took. Guests funneled out the sliding glass door into the side yard, forming a line that snaked toward the front gate. Most of them avoided looking at Rosa as they passed, mumbling awkward goodbyes to Ethan or pretending to be on their phones. One man stopped halfway down the walkway, gave Rosa an apologetic shrug, then kept going. The music was turned off. In the sudden quiet, the clinking of bottles and the crinkle of trash bags sounded loud. Bree tried to unhook the flat-screen television from the wall in the living room. Officer Hunt cleared her throat. Ma'am, she said, that TV was here before you moved in. It is ours, Bree said. We upgraded it. Rosa spoke up. Miguel bought that, she said, years ago. Officer Hunt looked between the women, then at the dusty imprint on the wall where the old bracket met fresh holes. She shook her head. Leave it, she said to Bree. You can contest later if you have proof. Ethan carried out duffel bags and a box hurriedly filled with clothes. Lily emerged with a backpack and an armful of stuffed animals, the patchy brown bear Rosa had mended 3 times tucked under her chin. In the kitchen, Bree grabbed dishes from the cabinets, arguing that she had bought them on sale. Carla stood by silent unless asked to clarify. Rosa watched, marking each small theft in her mind. You are cleaning her out, Jean muttered beside her. They cannot take the walls, Rosa said. Her voice surprised her. When the 30 minutes were nearly up, Officer Reyes checked his watch. Time, he said. You have what you need for now. Bree turned on the step hair sticking to her neck, face flushed. This is not over, Chico, she said to Rosa. You think this piece of paper fixes everything? You will regret this when you are old and no one is there to help you. Carla stepped between them. Mrs. Carter Delgado, she said, any further threats or harassment will be added to the record. I suggest you leave it there. Ethan did not look at Rosa as he passed. His shoulders were slumped, his jaw set. For a moment, as he reached the car, he hesitated, his hand on the door handle. Then he got in without turning back. Lily climbed into the back seat. She pressed her face to the window as the engine started. Her eyes found Rosa on the curb. Rosa lifted her hand. Lily lifted hers in return, fingers splayed palm flat against the glass. The car rolled away down the street. The balloons over the fence bobbed once, then settled. Silence settled too. The yard was a mess. Half-deflated decorations hung from hooks. The folding table in the backyard was still heaped with food and cups. The grill lid was half-open, smoke no longer rising. Officer Reyes walked back up the path and held out Rosa's keys. "Here," he said. "You might want to change the locks as soon as you can, just in case they made copies." Rosa took the keys. They felt heavier, though she knew they weighed the same. "Thank you," she said. "We will file our report," he replied. "If they come back without permission, you call us." Ms. Reed approached. "I will be following up with their case," she told Rosa. "I cannot tell you much now, but I can tell you that what happened in that kitchen matters to us. It matters for Lily." Rosa nodded. "She loves them," she said. "Children often love the people who hurt others," Ms. Reed said. "We work with that. We do not punish them for it." Carla gathered her papers and slid them back into her folder. "I will call you tomorrow," she said to Rosa. "We will schedule the hearing date and go over what to expect. For tonight, lock your doors. Rest if you can." Jean touched Rosa's shoulder. "You want me to stay?" she asked. "I can sleep on the couch. I snore, but only a little." Rosa looked at her house. The windows reflected the changing sky. The front door stood open, the inside dark beyond the threshold. "I think I need to be alone with it," she said. "Just for tonight." Jean studied her face, then nodded. "You call if you see so much as a shadow you do not like," she said. When they had gone, Rosa stood for a moment in the yard, the keys in her hand. The air smelled of cooled meat and spilled beer, and something underneath, familiar and older, the scent of dust and stucco baking in the sun. She went to the front door and stepped inside. The quiet felt strange after the noise, but it was not empty. It was a kind of fullness she had not felt in years. In the living room, the armchair still sat, shoved against the side wall. Rosa walked over and gripped its arms. It scraped as she dragged it back to its correct place by the front window. When she was done, the old dent in the carpet matched the chair's legs again. She stood there a moment, hand on the worn fabric, looking out at the street through glass she would have to clean. On the other side, the reflection that looked back at her was older than she remembered, but steady. In the kitchen, dirty plates and cups crowded the counters. Rosa filled the sink with hot water and soap. She rolled up her sleeves and washed. The repetitive motion calmed her. Rinse, stack dry. Her back ached, but she kept going until every dish that belonged to her was clean and back in its place. She threw Bree's floral-scented candles into a trash bag, along with the novelty napkins that said, "Cheers to us," in gold letters. The backyard took longer. Under the porch light, she picked up plastic cups, beer bottles, paper plates dotted with dried sauce. The grill sat where it had been during the video. She lifted the lid and saw charred bits of meat clinging to the grate. She took a wire brush and scrubbed until the metal gleamed as much as it ever had. Inside again, she turned toward the master bedroom. The bed held Bree's duvet, white and blue, rumpled from the rush of packing. A bottle of perfume lay on its side on the dresser, a thin line of liquid pooled under it. The air held a sweet, heavy scent that was not hers. Rosa opened the closet and saw Bree's dresses still hanging, some on nicer hangers than she would have bought for herself. She took them down one by one, folded them without care, and placed them in large black trash bags. She did the same with Ethan's few suits, with shoes, with anything that did not belong to her. She dragged the bags into the hall and left them there lined up like dark, swollen punctuation marks outside a door that was hers again. From the hallway closet, she pulled out the bundle of heavy fabric wrapped in plastic. Her quilt. The patchwork squares looked faded in spots. A few seams had been reinforced over the years, the thread newer and slightly different in color, but it was still the same quilt she and Miguel had slept under on the floor that first night. She spread it over the bed, smoothing the wrinkles with both hands. On the nightstand, she set Miguel's framed photograph upright. His smile from another time looked back at her. She adjusted the frame so that it faced the pillow where her head would rest. In the small room by the garage, she gathered her things. The drawer with her clothes, the rosary on the crate that had served as a nightstand, the bottle of lotion by the bed. She carried them back to the master setting, each item down, in places that felt right, that felt like they had been waiting. When she had finished, the small room was nearly empty. She stood in the doorway looking at the bare mattress, the shadowed corners, the thin window. "No one belongs in here," she said softly, though there was no one to hear. "Not like that." She closed the door. In the bathroom, she ran water until steam fogged the mirror. She washed the day from her skin, the smell of other people's food and sweat swirling down the drain. Later, in a clean nightgown that had lived in a box, while Bree's clothes took over drawers, she turned off the lights one by one. The hallway switch clicked up. The bulb overhead warmed the ceiling with a soft, steady glow. Rosa paused under it, watching the light spread down the hall, catch the edge of the family photos, touched the top of the doorframe to the room that was hers again. She left that light on. In bed, she slid under the quilt and tucked it around her shoulders. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. The mattress dipped slightly under her weight. She lay on her back and listened. The house creaked as all houses in the desert do when the temperature drops a few degrees. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere a pipe clicked as it cooled. For the first time in a long while, none of those sounds felt like threats. They felt like what they were, the settling and breathing of a place that knew her. Rosa closed her eyes. The keys lay on the nightstand within reach. Sleep came slowly, but it came. Rosa woke to light on her face. For a moment she did not know where she was. The ceiling above her was the same, painted the same off-white, with the faint shadow where Miguel had once patched a crack. The difference was in how it felt. The quilt lay heavy and familiar over her legs. The pillow smelled like her own soap. The door to the bathroom stood open a little, and the hallway light she had left on glowed softly at the edge of her vision. She lay still, listening. The house shifted and settled. No footsteps, no television, no blender. Only the small sounds of pipes and wood and air. Her chest loosened. She got up slowly, her joints complaining, and made coffee in a kitchen that no longer contained anyone else's cups. The mugs in the cabinet were mismatched from years of growing a collection, but they were all ones she remembered buying or being given. The phone rang while she was buttering toast. Carla's voice came clear through the line. "Good morning, Mrs. Delgado," she said. "How was your night?" "Quiet," Rosa answered. "That is what we wanted," Carla replied. Paper rustled on her end. "The hearing has been set for 2 weeks from today. We will have to show the judge that the eviction should be made permanent." Rosa's hand tightened on the edge of the counter. "What do I need to do?" she asked. "For now, keep everything as it is, Carla said. "Do not contact them. If they try to contact you, let me know. I will come by next week and we will go over your testimony." The 2 weeks between that call and the hearing unfolded in a pattern that was part old, part new. Rosa cleaned not with the frantic energy of someone erasing another person's presence, but with the care of someone reclaiming an old rhythm. She moved through the house with a bucket and a rag, wiping down baseboards, scrubbing the grout between tiles, washing windows until they gleamed. She took in sewing again, at first only a few pieces. Mrs. Lopez down the street brought a dress that needed hemming. A young man who had heard of her work through his aunt came with a suit that did not fit quite right. Word spread. The small front bedroom that had once held Ethan's posters and trophies became a workroom, ironing board in one corner, sewing machine in another. In the evening, she sat in the armchair by the front window with a cup of tea and watched the cul-de-sac. Kids rode bikes, dogs tugged on leashes. Jean came and went in her oversized t-shirts, waving whenever she noticed Rosa at the glass. Once a car that looked like Ethan's slowed at the end of the street brake lights, flaring for a breath, then turned away. He did not stop. The hearing day arrived. The courthouse smelled of dust, old paper, and something faintly metallic. Rosa sat on a hard bench outside the courtroom with Carla beside her. Jean sat on Rosa's other side, hands folded in her lap, foot tapping a rhythm against the floor. When the bailiff called their case, Rosa stood. Inside the room was high-ceilinged and plain. The judge sat at the front behind a polished wooden bench. Ethan and Bree were already there at a table on one side with a man Rosa did not know in a suit that looked borrowed. Ethan's tie was crooked. Bree's hair was pulled back tighter than usual, her face pale under makeup. They did not look at Rosa as she took her place at Carla's side. The proceedings moved in a formal order. Names read, case number stated. Carla spoke first, her voice measured as she laid out the basic facts. She handed up copies of the deed, the bank statement, the police report from the night of the eviction. She called Rosa to the stand. Rosa walked to the witness chair on the legs that felt both heavy and too light. She raised her right hand, said she would tell the truth, and sat. Carla's questions were simple. "What is your name? How long have you lived in that house? Who built it?" Rosa answered. When she spoke of Miguel and the years of work, she kept her voice steady. When she described the shove in the kitchen, she saw the way the judge's eyes sharpened, and she let herself remember the feel of the counter against her skull. The lawyer for Ethan and Bree tried to soften things. "Is it possible," he asked, "that you gave permission for the home equity loan and simply forgot, that you agreed in the moment but do not recall now?" "No," Rosa said. "I remember every time I signed anything. I did not sign that." He tried to suggest that moving Ethan and Bree in meant she had given up some control. "Families help families," Rosa said. "I let them stay. I did not give them my house." When it was Ethan's turn, he walked to the stand with his shoulders rounded. He looked thinner. The suit did not fit quite right. His hands shook when he took the oath. He said he never meant to hurt his mother, that she had slipped. He said the loan was for the good of the house. He said Bree was only trying to make the place nicer. He never once turned his head toward Rosa. Bree testified about stress and tight finances and how Rosa always overreacted. Her gaze darted around the courtroom, avoiding Rosa's entirely. The judge listened. When everyone had spoken and the lawyers had said what they wanted to say, the judge shuffled papers on his bench. Mrs. Delgado, he said at last, looking directly at her. The law recognizes your ownership of this property. It also recognizes that you have the right to live in your home free of abuse and exploitation. He turned his attention to Ethan and Bree. Mr. Delgado, Mrs. Carter. Delgado, the behavior described here and supported by the evidence is unacceptable. You do not get to take your mother's house out from under her. You do not get to physically shove her and then call it an accident. His tone remained even, but his words carried weight. The eviction order is made permanent, he said. You are not to return to the residence without express written permission from Mrs. Delgado and with law enforcement present. The protective order remains in effect. The matter of the fraudulent loan is being referred for criminal investigation. The words landed with a physical sensation in Rosa's chest, like something heavy being set down. When court adjourned, she walked out with Carla and Jean into the bright glare of the parking lot. Behind them, the automatic door slid shut on the image of Ethan standing by a column, his head bent, Bree talking fast into her phone. Rosa did not stop. Life did not transform overnight, but it settled into a pattern that felt solid. The loan investigation moved through channels Rosa did not see. Once Carla called to say that the bank had cooperated, that there were security camera images, that the case was in the hands of a prosecutor now. You may be called again, Carla said. For now, live your life. So she did. She painted the living room a lighter color. She bought a new pair of glasses that did not slide down her nose. She took an afternoon every couple of weeks to sit in Jean's kitchen, drinking coffee and arguing about television shows. Her business grew. Brides came with pictures on their phones of dresses that cost too much in stores. Rosa helped them find fabrics that felt rich without being expensive, pinned bodices with careful fingers, and watched their faces soften in the mirror when they liked what they saw. She kept Lily's room ready. The posters of cartoons remained on the walls. The bedspread had butterflies on it now, a gift she had bought one day when a client had tipped more than expected. In the top drawer of the small dresser, she kept a stack of clean t-shirts in the right size and a comb she had found on sale with bright blue teeth. 2 months after the hearing, the phone rang one morning while Rosa was pinning a hem. Mrs. Delgado, Ms. Reed said. This is Erin from Child Services. Rosa set the skirt carefully on the back of a chair. How is she? Rosa asked before anything else. How is Lily? She is all right, Ms. Reed said. She misses you. She talks about you a lot. Rosa closed her eyes briefly. There have been some developments, Ms. Reed continued. Her father is dealing with the legal consequences of the loan. Her mother is working long hours. Lily has been spending a lot of time with neighbors, sometimes unsupervised. She paused. We are looking at temporary placement with a relative, she said. Would you be open to being considered? Yes, Rosa said. Her answer came faster than she could think. Yes, of course. There is a process, Ms. Reed said. Home visits, interviews, background checks. We have to make sure your home is safe and that you can meet her needs. It is not a judgment on you. These are steps we take for everyone. You can come when you like, Rosa replied. Any time. The visits began the next week. Ms. Reed arrived with a clipboard and a calm expression. She walked through the house, noting the locks on the doors, the way the kitchen knives were stored, the presence of smoke detectors. She asked about Rosa's income, her health, her support system. Who would you call if you got sick? Ms. Reed asked. Jean, Rosa said, or the ladies from church. They would come with soup before I even asked. Who would help with Lily if you had an emergency? The same, Rosa said, and her teacher if it was during school. We know each other. Ms. Reed asked why Rosa had left the house that night. Because I was afraid if I stayed, Rosa replied, I would not wake up one morning, or I would sign something I did not mean to sign. Ms. Reed wrote something down, then looked up. Why did you want Lily with you? She asked. She loves you very much, that is clear. I need to hear from you what you see for her here. Rosa thought of her granddaughter's small body pressed against her in the hallway, of the way she had whispered that she would protect her. I want her to be a child, Rosa said slowly. Not the referee, not the witness, not the one who has to choose between people she loves. I want her to have dinners at a table and a bed that is hers, and someone who listens when she's scared. She lifted her head. I want her to know she has a place that stays, she said. Ms. Reed listened. Her expression did not change much, but her eyes softened. Weeks passed. Rosa kept working, kept cooking, kept the little yellow room dusted and ready. One afternoon, the phone rang again. Rosa recognized the number and felt her heart begin to beat faster. Mrs. Delgado, Ms. Reed said. The review panel approved your home for kinship placement. If you are still willing, Lily can come stay with you while her parents' situation is addressed. Rosa had to sit down. She can live here, she asked, just to hear it said aloud. Yes, Ms. Reed replied. We will bring her Saturday morning. Saturday morning, Rosa woke before dawn. She changed the sheets on the butterfly bed again, even though they were clean. She set out a plate with Lily's favorite cereal, the one with little frosted squares, and sliced a banana on top. When the white SUV pulled into the driveway, Rosa was already at the door. Lily stepped out of the back seat with a backpack on her shoulders and a small suitcase rolling behind her. She looked taller than the last time Rosa had seen her, but her face was the same open and earnest. At the sight of Rosa, she broke into a run. "Grandma," she said. The word burst out of her. Rosa knelt on the porch without caring how much her knees would complain later. Lily collided with her arms around her neck backpack, bumping her shoulder. Ms. Reed stood by the car, watching with a small smile. She carried a folder under her arm. "We will go over some paperwork," she said when they had stepped back inside. "Nothing too scary." The papers were full of terms and conditions of responsibilities and obligations. Rosa signed where Ms. Reed pointed the pen steady in her hand. Later, when the car had gone and the house had settled around the new shape of them, Rosa showed Lily her room. "It is yellow," Lily said, stepping over the threshold. "You told me once that yellow was happy," Rosa replied. "I remembered." The walls were a soft shade. The bedspread was bright with butterflies, wings open in impossible colors. On the desk, a small lamp waited beside a clean notebook and a cup of sharpened pencils. Lily dropped her backpack on the floor and sat on the bed, bouncing a little. "Does this mean I live here now?" she asked. "For now," Rosa said. "You will still see your parents, but yes, you live here with me." Lily considered this, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Can we have spaghetti tonight?" Rosa laughed, the sound surprising her. "We can?" she said. Days found their pattern. Mornings with breakfast and the rush to school. Afternoons of homework at the kitchen table, Lily's legs swinging under the chair as she read aloud from a textbook or drew pictures in the margins. Rosa sewed while Lily colored. They took breaks to walk to the end of the street and back, talking about little things about friends and teachers, and whether the neighbor's dog could really understand English. There were visits arranged with Ethan and Bree at a supervised office. Lily went with a social worker. Sometimes she came back quiet, sometimes chatty. Rosa listened either way, smoothing Lily's hair while she spoke. Once, weeks later, Rosa saw Ethan at the grocery store. He stood in the tortilla aisle, a small basket at his feet, staring at the rows of packages as if the choice were too much. He looked older. There was stubble on his jaw and a hollowness around his eyes. He noticed her after a moment. Their gazes met. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Ethan nodded a small jerky motion and looked away. He picked up a package without checking the label and walked down another aisle. Rosa watched him go. Her throat burned, but she did not follow. That evening, Lily and Rosa made tortillas together, hands dusted with flour. Lily's circles came out more like clouds, but they puffed slightly in the pan, and she laughed at their shapes. On a Sunday afternoon, Jean came over with a tray of cookies. They sat in the backyard under the little tree that had once been a stick. Its branches now cast a patch of shade big enough for 2 chairs and a small table. Lily kicked a ball around the yard, occasionally stopping to sit on the grass and draw shapes in the dirt with a stick. The sun was warm but not harsh. The air held the scent of soil and the faint sweetness of the flowers Rosa had coaxed back into life along the fence. "You did it," Jean said, taking a bite of a cookie. "The place looks amazing." "It looks like itself," Rosa said. "It had to remember." They fell into a comfortable silence, watching Lily make up her own game, narrating to herself as she played. At one point, Lily froze, eyes focused on something near the bushes. "Grandma, look," she called. Rosa stood her joints stiff from sitting and walked over with Jean. In Lily's cupped hand sat a small butterfly wings the color of sunlight caught in lemon peel. It flexed once, twice, then stilled as if resting. "It landed on me," Lily whispered. "I did not even move." They all watched. The butterfly opened its wings wide, the fragile veins visible in the midday light. For a moment it stayed as if thinking. Then it lifted light as breath from Lily's fingers and rose above their heads. They tilted their faces up, following the fluttering path as it climbed past the fence over the tree into the plain blue of the Arizona sky. Lily laughed, the sound clear and bright. Rosa reached for her hand and held it, feeling the small pulse under the skin, the living solid proof of the life they were building in this yard, in this house. The hallway light would be waiting for them later, steady above framed photos, old and new. The quilt would be smooth on the bed. The keys would be on their hook by the door, exactly where she had chosen to hang them. For now, under the open sky with Jean at her side and Lily's hand in hers, Rosa stood in her backyard and let the quiet of contentment settle around her like a familiar well-sewn cloth. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.